All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are joining us or watching this recording. We'd like to thank you guys for joining our webinar today with Esri Field Maps and talking about the new all-in-one data collection field app. My name is Joe Madai. I am a mapping support technician with Seiler Instrument, and I've been working with Seiler for 6 years now, doing pretty much everything in the line of GIS field work. So today we have Jay Reister with us and Jeff Shaner from Esri graciously helping us present this. I wanted to run over a little bit of housekeeping before we start with the webinar itself. This will be recorded. We will be sending out a copy of the PowerPoint and a copy of the video, which we will then post to our Seiler YouTube, Seiler Solutions YouTube. There are polls in this, so we appreciate if you play along and answer questions that we ask during the course of the webinar. And there is also a chat window, so go in there, chat, say hi. We also have questions, a Q&A segment. Questions and answers will be handled at the end of the webinar. We're slated for about 45 minutes time with Q&A at the end. We will send, like I said, we'll send an email out at the end. But as for now, I'm going to turn it over to Jay, and he's going to start the webinar for us. Jay?
Thanks, Joe, and thanks for everyone attending. And Jeff, thank you for graciously accepting our presentation request here. Again, Jay Reister, Senior Mapping Support Technician, been with Seiler for over 14 years, providing mapping solutions, GPS solutions with both Trimble and Esri apps, and certified Trimble trainer. And we've got a couple slides to go through here before we let Jeff talk about what's new with field maps for ArcGIS. Real quick, a little bit about Seiler, family-run company based out of St. Louis, Missouri, but we have offices throughout the Midwest, and we've got some offerings down there at the bottom of the page as far as what other products we do offer and solutions. Where are we located? I'm based out of our Milwaukee office. Joe's out of our St. Louis office, but as you can see, we've got other offices throughout the Midwest. And Jeff, would you like to share your screen and give us the introduction to ArcGIS Field Maps?
Oh, hold on 1 second before we go. We're going to run a poll real quick here, Jay.
Okay.
The first poll. So there's going to be two polls here. So I'm going to launch polling right now. And the first question for you guys is, are you using Esri apps for data collection in the field? Wow, and look at those numbers fly in there, people answering. Awesome.
Wow, that's awesome.
Nice.
Great participation here. So got a few people out there. I'm gonna wait a couple more seconds here. Kind of slowing down. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and end polling and share results. So 75% of you are using Esri apps. So that's great. That's great news. If for those who aren't, welcome. Hopefully we can learn and educate you guys on some Esri apps today. Next one here is for those of you who are using Esri apps. What apps are you using in the field to collect data?
Looks like we have some people already using field maps. That's awesome.
That is good.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end polling and share results with everybody. So looks like Collector and Survey 1, 2, 3 are the 1 and 2 apps. So I'm going to stop sharing here and pass this off to Jeff. So Jeff, okay. It is all yours.
I am going to try and share my screen. Can you just give me an indication if it's showing up?
Yes.
We're good? Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you for the opportunity to present. And what I thought I would do to kind of kick things off is give you a bit of strategy information, where we are today, where we're headed with field operations, and then dive into field maps, into giving a status update, and then we'll kind of end it with some roadmap stuff at the end of the webinar. So if you've been using Esri apps, which it looks like a lot of you have been, you know that we've been building out this suite of very focused apps that let you complete a variety of different activities. And we've centered around the notion of being able to plan the work that you need to do in the field, coordinate those efforts, be able to navigate to the location of work, use maps in a read-only way for understanding, perhaps marking up maps, and then also data collection, being able to capture and maintain GIS information in the field. And last but not least, also be able to know where your workers are, monitor their status, and record where they've gone. So we've been iterating on this strategy for quite some time, building out capabilities into each of these individual apps as we move along. But this past year, we did a slight shift in that strategy. We kind of discovered through the feedback from our customers and the work that we were doing as we're building out these products, that the multi-app strategy, even though it's recommended by both Apple and Google, is very challenging. You need to sign into each application separately. The applications are quite sandboxed, so you can't share content between different applications. And if you need to use multiple apps to complete a variety of workflows, that's challenging. And the shifting of context between apps that come to the foreground and the background in your device also can be quite jarring. So we shifted our focus into building ArcGIS Field Maps, where ArcGIS Field Maps would be one application that you could use to complete all of these different activities. And we've started down that path, and we've included a number of these capabilities, which we'll talk about in more detail here in the presentation. But I wanted to also highlight that even though we're building this one app solution to kind of accomplish each of these tasks, Esri will continue to build very focused apps as well. And you can think of ArcGIS Survey 123 as one of those very focused apps. It takes a very form-centric approach, leveraging an open standard called XLS Forms to provide a solution for form-centric data collection. Similarly, ArcGIS Quick Capture provides an on-the-go, very simple big button experience for focused data collection. Some of the other apps you may or may not have heard of before, ArcGIS Mission with the Mission Responder app is very focused on a collaborative team-based response solution from a public safety perspective. And you can just expect us to grow these capabilities with additional focused apps over time. But at its heart, at its core, ArcGIS Field Maps will be one app that you can use to leverage all of these different capabilities. So where are we today? We've actually pulled together and released ArcGIS Field Maps, I think, pretty quickly over the course of last year. And in the December update to ArcGIS Online, brought together the capabilities of ArcGIS Explorer, ArcGIS Collector, and ArcGIS Tracker. And so in this one solution today, you can support your map viewing needs with the map markup capabilities that were inherently inside of ArcGIS Explorer, the high accuracy data collection capabilities that were a part of ArcGIS Collector, as well as the integrated support for our transaction models within Esri to do asset inspection workflows, leveraging the work you've put into designing your geodatabases. And then also brought in the location tracking capabilities so that you can, in that one app, view maps, record locations, broadcast your current status, collect data, and do those inspection workflows. So that's what we've already released in the December update. But there's more to it than that. we added, as part of the solution with ArcGIS Field Maps, a new back office web application. And that web application is really designed for the GIS professional that needs to rapidly configure and deploy maps for any one of those different activities. So we've brought together, like in this screenshot, all of the offline capabilities. So you could kind of troubleshoot whether your maps are ready to take offline in the field, directly do things like enable offline mode on the map or enable sync on the feature services that are part of the layers in the map, diagnose if, perhaps you're using a base map that doesn't support offline, generate the map areas, that kind of thing. So it's also the way, and we'll talk about this a little bit further on in the presentation, where you can configure layers for data collection, whether it be the feature templates that you use to collect new information or the new forms capability that we've introduced as well. And as we move forward, this will grow significantly in capability. We'll be adding ArcGIS Workforce in, so you can receive and complete work in your mobile app, but dispatch and manage work assignments through the web application as well. From a mobile app perspective, with that December release, as I mentioned already, we've brought together a lot of the map viewing and map markup capabilities, as well as everything that Collector had to offer. The one thing I'll highlight on this slide is that we did update the system requirements as part of our work effort here. Right now, we require iOS 13.5 or higher and Android 8 or higher to run the Field Maps mobile application. When it comes to the map viewing and map markup capabilities, there's a couple of things I wanted to highlight. Field Maps, just like the other Esri apps, is powered by an underlying runtime engine. And we've updated Field Maps to the latest version of that engine. And with it comes a lot of new capabilities, things like the advanced symbology functionality that's in our underlying platform, being able to leverage the arcade expression language for labeling and symbology alone, but also in your pop-ups, which is quite powerful because of some of the more advanced capabilities like feature sets. And if you're new to the arcade expression language and you are a GIS professional, I highly recommend you spend some time understanding and learning it, because it's a very powerful language for you to leverage when you're making maps and using them in the field. It supports the concept of group layers. So if you have a lot of content inside of your maps, you can quickly turn on and off layers within the map using the concept of group layers, something that I think you very much want to take advantage of. It has all of the map tools that were a part of Explorer and Collector, including, if you haven't looked at it, a compass tool. So if you think about the compass tool paired with, a Trimble R2, for example, you could use the compass to navigate to the location of, an asset that might be buried or hidden, and get really close to its location. The markup capabilities, if you're coming from using ArcGIS Collector, this is all new to you. So you can use the markup capabilities to draw graphics on top of your map. That might be a marker, it might be a note. You can freehand sketch lines and areas. It'll actually recognize shapes like rectangles and circles. You can take that markup, you can share it peer-to-peer. So you could share it as a screenshot or the markup itself as graphics by an email or a text message if you want, and others can open that markup up and see it on their map. And if you have the proper privileges, you could share it back to your organization, and it'll appear as a a feature collection you could open up inside of ArcGIS Pro and use as well. Now, when it comes to the high accuracy capabilities, I think the most fundamental thing to say here is that ArcGIS Field Maps includes all of the capabilities that ArcGIS Collector introduced over the course of years that we've been building it. And we've been working with Trimble quite closely in providing strong integration between their GNSS receivers and our software. In fact, we're one of the few, vendors of or partners of Trimble that have included the Trimble Positions SDK inside of the Field Maps app. And there's a lot of benefits of that. And I think I've got one more slide on that. And then Jay, I think you're going to jump into that in a bit more detail. But just know that there's a lot of solutions that we provide around high accuracy data collection. And if you haven't used Collector before, some of this might be new to you. But when it comes to the data collection capabilities, we can capture things like orthometric heights, store them as elevation value in the geometry of the feature you're creating. We provide a GPS averaging solution in the app settings. You could turn on a confidence interval to 95% if you want. There's a GPS bar or banner in the application that provides additional details like the provider information, fix type, even the station ID, if you have that information, can appear in the GPS details. We also support the streaming of data capture with lines and areas, that kind of thing. We probably are going to get into a bit more detail on that when you're talking, Jay. But if we want to talk about that more, maybe we can leverage it in the Q&A section. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, and I think we're going to pass you over to Jay, and Jay's going to talk about GNSS a little bit more detail, right, Jay?
Yeah, that sounds good, Jeff. And yeah, we'll definitely follow up about some of those techniques when collecting lines and areas in the QA section.
All right. So we're going to run another poll real quick, guys, here. So question answered to you guys, are you currently using high accuracy GNSS with Field Maps? Now, if you're using it with Collector, go ahead and hit answer yes. I just didn't want to label a bunch of software out there. So if you're using high accuracy, go ahead and hit yes or no. Got a lot of votes coming in. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and end polling here, and more no than yes. So so Jay's gonna go in here next and discuss a little bit. So we got one more poll here for you guys quickly, and then we'll be done on the polling side of things. Is what GNSS receivers are you using? And if you're using multiple, it is a multiple choice selection, and you can select that as well. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end polling here. So of those 48%, most of you are using an R2. The other ones look like there are some other out there. There are other GNSS receivers that are out there. There is competition to Trimble. We just happen to be a Trimble-centric GNSS provider. Jay, if you want to, can you, when you start your slide, we had a question come in the chat that says, can you define high accuracy? So if you can talk a little bit about that too and answer that question, that'd be great.
Sure. Let me just double check. Are we seeing my PowerPoint here?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Okay. So I guess to define high accuracy, great question there. So it is adding a GNSS or GPS function to your smart device to improve the horizontal and the vertical accuracy in most cases. So when you start to get into that realm of something that is better than a meter, sub-meter, sub-foot, or down to the 1 inch level, that's what we're trying to get across here. Is that's what high accuracy GNSS is basically equated to. It's not for everyone, and it's definitely not for everything that you collect either. We can get into some other examples during Q&A about that. But I guess think of it from the standpoint of, if you're trying to map something and then be able to navigate back to it within good reliability, confidence level, precision level of something, better than sub-meter, sub-foot. You're looking for buried water valves. Now, granted, the snow is definitely melting in most places right now, but earlier this winter, there's a lot of snow piles around. Or when you get in construction season, sometimes things get, paved over or graveled over, and they're kind of hard to see. Or springtime, summertime, you start to get things that grow at very fast conditions, and you can't find the bee box or the handhold in someone's front yard anymore because the grass is too tall or there's weeds in the way. So we're trying to navigate back to something after it's been collected with a high accuracy GNSS receiver, in a nutshell. So on this screen, if we can all see this, here's a quick example of a high accuracy VRS or real-time network. I'm using the term VRS because that's a Trimble coin term for virtual reference stations, meaning multiple base stations within an area that is then providing the solution up via a modem or a server. And so that means that you would have to be on the internet with your smart device in order to allow your sub-meter, sub-foot, or 1-inch device to get a accurate reading or from the base station network, such as a VRS network, state by state, or it could be a private network, which we'll get into a little bit more examples here in the next couple slides. So basically, instead of just going out there with your cell phone or smartphone and getting whatever you get at that point in time, 15 meters, 20 meters, 30 meters, we're trying to maybe get something better than a meter, especially in the sub-foot to 1-inch category. And an example I've got here in Wisconsin, where I live and do a lot of my testing, is we have a network called WISCORS. It's a Wisconsin DOT-based network. Other networks in the upper Midwest too include one out of Minnesota, Iowa, Michigan, Indiana, and even Missouri in our territory. Illinois does not have one currently, but Trimble does have a paid-for subscription service that you can use in Illinois called VRS Now. And so all these base stations that you see with these little push pins are known control points. If you think about it, they are a Trimble survey grade base station, and they feed into the Wisconsin DOT server network, which I would dial in with a username and password in order to get my sub-foot or centimeter R2 live corrections. So there is no post-processing with this workflow. And also too, collector and field maps, you do have to use a real-time solution in order to get that sub-meter, sub-foot, and or centimeter level accuracy. Other types of corrections are available throughout the world. One of them that Trimble also runs is called Trimble RTX. It's a worldwide internet and also satellite-based correction. The satellite-based correction comes in handy if you are in remote areas. Even here in the United States, we all have cellular data problems when we go traveling throughout the United States. Specifically, one of our territories, Kansas, does not have a network set up. And so one of the benefits of using the Trimble RTX satellite-based correction services, I could be out in the middle of nowhere with not much for cellular data connectivity, but I could get a correction sub-foot or down to a couple inches. The basis behind a lot of this is the old OmniStar Trimble network that a lot of ag departments and would use, for tractor guidance and for planting crops. So this does come in handy around the world. There are other satellite-based corrections too. One is called SBAS that the Federal Aviation does run in North America. That would get you around a sub-meter correction that we would use with our Trimble R1 devices. There are some minimum requirements when using field maps that are a little bit different or have evolved since the old classic and collector products that were out there. So do check that website out on Esri's ArcGIS Field Maps for the minimum requirements. The known minimum requirements, and Jeff, if you got any updates on that, please let us know. This was as of last December, 13.5 on iOS and a minimum of 8 on Android and a specific API release of 26. So you can also see too that the logo has changed over the years too. So if you ever do call in for support, and if Joe or I do discuss maybe what the logo looks like, if you're not sure, especially Field Maps is now called Field Maps, but previously when we had two versions of Collector, it got a little confusing. So knowing what the logo actually looked like, we could help troubleshoot some things. So when speaking of high accuracy devices, we did have that poll that Joe ran. Here's a quick snippet of a few of them that we offer. The R1 on the left is the sub-meter device that we've got. The R2 can be sub-meter, sub-foot, and or centimeter. And then when you're going into the R10s and R12s, that's survey grade. You're looking at centimeter also for that. Joe, do you want me to bring up the product configuration guide on this particular?
Yeah, go ahead and pick up. Yeah, go ahead and bring up the configuration guide. It's good
Sure.
to see that information.
Yeah. So Trimble has a handy guide out on the website here. Let's see if I can bring this up and share the screen. Joe, let me know if you see it.
Yep, we're good.
Okay. So they've made a matrix out here that is online versus having to download a PDF like they had in the past. So what you can see here is you can pick from different products, operating systems, or all devices. But if you just want to look at it from a quick high-level snapshot, you can see on the left here, you've got the R1, R2 going down through the R8s, R10s, and the list keeps going. And then what you can do is go across over here to the middle and look where Field Maps is, and then look at either iOS or Android and hover over the green little check mark, and it'll tell you what apps need to be used in conjunction with Field Maps. And on the Trimble side here, for using high accuracy, in order to program it so that I could use one of those state-run VRS DOT real-time networks, I have to program that within an app called TMM or Trimble Mobile Manager. This is free to use, free to download from the app stores, whether it's iOS and or Android. And then from there, Field Maps will call out that app, ask you to sign into Trimble Mobile Manager, and once you do take care of some settings within Field Maps, it'll know that you are going to be using high accuracy GNSS. So you don't actually program Field Maps with that whole like Wiscors or Missouri DOT or Iowa DOT username and password and IP address. You actually do it all in Field Maps, in Trimble Field Maps, or sorry, Trimble Mobile Manager for Field Maps. But as you can see, some of these do have some orange icons, so they mean more or less they haven't been tested fully, and the red, of course, means it's not compatible. So once you start to get into some of the other receivers, they may be Android compatible only or other. Just double check that, and you can always confirm with us on that what devices are compatible with Field Maps, and of course what operating system. All right, can you still see my screen, Joe?
Yep, we're good.
All right, so here's some quick snapshots or screenshots of what the Trimble Mobile Manager app actually looks like after you have programmed it for a specific real-time correction. On the left there, you can see an RTK fixed solution, giving you the latitude, longitude, and on the right, a little bit more details, giving the horizontal, vertical accuracy, also showing what geoid is actually being used at that time to get you that orthometric height, because now we actually are able to expose the orthometric MSL when using Field Maps, both in the field and of course back in the office. And Jeff did touch on a good point of arcade expressions. Definitely get to know how to use arcade expressions, because that will help you uncover the orthometric height when using it in the field with Field Maps.
And we got a couple good questions out there too that are coming through, so we'll cover those in questions as well.
Okay, sounds good. Here's a quick example on a cul-de-sac where I live. On the left, just starting out collecting data, you see the accuracy badge within Field Maps up the very top, telling you what your horizontal accuracy is. You could always click on that, and when I did click on it, I exposed what was being read behind the scenes from Trimble Mobile Manager. So my altitude's coming across for MSL. So this is US survey feet MSL, 933.3, horizontal accuracy and vertical accuracy there. Also to what type of fixed type it was, and it was RTK, versus it being something else like a satellite-based correction. And then on the right, I just stepped back so you could actually see where the feature got dropped on top of the fire hydrant, and then accuracy is displayed again there. Here's some screenshots of actually inside of Field Maps then, after collecting that hydrant, filled out the attributes. So not much has really changed as far as as far as for collector into Field Maps. You're still going to have the access to senior data after you collect it, have access to making domains. And in the middle there, I exposed the GNSS metadata that I did use when I published for Field Maps. And then on the right, just a simple photo. And the joke was when I took the photo, if you can see that Bumbles, the snow monster of the north, is still in my neighbor's yard because it's frozen to the ground. Welcome to Wisconsin winter. All right. That's my quick overview of high accuracy GNSS. Jeff, do you want to start sharing your screen to continue on with the
yeah, for sure.
All right, I'll stop sharing.
And maybe, I know there's lots of good questions coming in. Maybe I'll just touch on a couple before moving on to this.
Sure.
Just to kind of extend some of the things you said. One of the things that is really unique, I think, in the relationship that Esri has with Trimble is that integration between the Trimble Mobile Manager and Field Maps. And one of the things that's possible now with Trimble Mobile Manager integration is that through Trimble Mobile Manager, you can access an accurate geoid like NavD88 if you'd like, and pass a true orthometric height into collector and to Field Maps now too. And with Field Maps, we'll store that as part of the Z value in the geometry. Through the attributes that the GPS metadata attributes, will also store the height above ellipsoid. So if you wanted to have both, you can do that. I think we'll get to it. Maybe we could talk about it in a little more detail in the Q&A, but the GPS metadata, there's multiple ways to add it. You don't have to enable Z on your geometry in order to get it. It just is unique to point feature layers. So I wanted to just kind of touch on that in case there are any people that were kind of ruminating over that. When it comes to the transaction model support, I think really important to understand at a high level is that we support the full platform with Field Maps. That means that you can use what are called hosted feature services inside of ArcGIS Online or ArcGIS Enterprise and just store data directly in those layers. And when you do that, that's kind of like a last one in wins kind of scenario. But if you're using ArcGIS server-based feature services, you have more opportunities. Like you can use the versioning transaction models that come with it. And that includes the kind of what's called traditional versioning, as well as the branch versioning that was introduced in support of our new utility network. And Field Maps today supports the full gambit of it, with the exception of if you're working in a connected state, meaning that you haven't downloaded maps to your device for offline map use. We don't support editing against a branch there. I know this is kind of deep, so apologies for that. But if you're into how you model within ArcGIS server, these are important concepts to think about. When it comes to those inspection workflows, actually upfront being able to define how inspections are modeled in the layers that are presented through maps is really important. And you can use the concept of relationships inside of our information model to bring that forward. So say you have, like in this example that has been going back and forth, a fire hydrant. That fire hydrant is routinely inspected. You want to have a one-to-many relationship established where you have the asset, the hydrant, and then relationship to a separate table to manage the historical inspections that happen. And with those historical inspections, you could see what happened last year, the year before, or using the arcade expression language, you could pull that all together and say, show me when I look at the asset, when the last inspection was done, or when the last inspection failed. So there's a lot of really cool things you can do in modeling the way you do inspections in the field. Likewise, they might be feature to feature based relationships. Maybe you're doing a pipeline inspection and you need to have readings along the pipeline, and you want to be able to capture the geometry of those readings, but have them directly related to a section of the pipeline. All of that is possible with some good information design inside of the ArcGIS platform. And then last but not least, we're going to spend some time on this is the smart forms capability that we're rolling out in Field Maps and through the platform that lets you kind of focus your inspection workflow or your data collection workflow on capturing the information that's really needed to capture and store when you're out in the field. I wanted to touch on location tracking. Location tracking may be a pretty new concept to a lot of you that maybe have been focusing wholly on, say, Collector or Survey 123. We introduced a product called ArcGIS Tracker, and that was a standalone product. We introduced it last year. We leverage the core motion APIs as well as location when we're capturing your location and your history of locations. What does that mean? I said location a lot of times there. Those are the kind of fitness APIs that you find on your smartphone device. By capturing that information or leveraging that information, we can know when someone's walking, when they're driving, when they're stationary. And we also use that motion-based status to drive when we capture, when we use GPS, and really it optimizes the battery consumption that way. But within a map, you can just turn location tracking on, and in the background, it will record your location. In one layer, it'll have your last known location, and it can broadcast that every 60 seconds or every 30 seconds if you can configure it that way. And then a breadcrumb trail of everywhere you've been. And that can help you from the perspective of a worker safety or just a accountability of the work that's been completed relative to where the worker's location was. We've also used that as a way to start integrating with peripherals like Apple Watch, and it's something we want to do a lot more of as we move forward. Today, a lot of the location tracking capabilities are used in the context of events or public safety, but there's such a broad use of location that I think that there's some pretty interesting workflows where you can take advantage of it. App linking, we have some customers that leverage the app linking capabilities to integrate between, say, Collector and Survey 123. So you have the great mapping capabilities with the form-centric flow. But just know that Field Maps supports all of the app linking capabilities of all of these apps combined. And really, it's just composing a URL. And with that URL, you can drive or remotely control the mobile app. So I could say, open a map and center on a location and zoom to a specific scale, or search for something, or capture data and pass a bunch of information to it. That's the kind of common flow we're seeing with the Collector to Survey 123 workflows. So just be aware that there is a app linking scheme, and try to use it to your advantage. There's lots of things you can do with it. Mobile device management, just to touch on it really quickly. If you're not using an MDM today, you should consider it. I mean, it's a great way to manage the fleet of devices that you have. And we've been adding the concept of configuration keywords to help support you in that workflow. So say you're using ArcGIS Enterprise, one of the most challenging things you need to do to jumpstart your deployment of a mobile app is sign into that application. And if you're using Enterprise, you need to have your mobile workers type in the URL of the portal, they're going to get it wrong virtually every time. So you can use an application configuration keyword, the portal URL, and push that to devices through the MDM, so they don't have to figure it out. They just directly, when they open up the app, it takes them to the username password part of it, and they can sign in. Likewise, if everything's behind your firewall with an app, with an MDM, you have support for app level VPN, so they don't have to sign in with some separate VPN software. You can configure all that with the mobile device management software. Okay, I wanted to touch a little bit more detail on the web application. So the web application, I mentioned this earlier, it's about configuring and deploying your maps. It's really for you as GIS analysts to kind of jumpstart the deployments and rapidly get maps out to the field. And so it's kind of organized in concepts based upon the properties of the map, the content of the map, the offline experience, and the way you share maps. So those are the key capabilities of the web application. Now, if you haven't spent time really looking at feature templates are kind of the data dictionary. It's when you want to create something new, these are the types of objects you can create. And they're coming from the layers that are within the maps that you've authored. So spending time on defining those templates is really important to minimizing the work that the mobile worker has to do when capturing data in the field. Inside of the web application, you can configure those templates. You can order them in different ways, so the order appears differently in the mobile application. For each individual template, you can set default values for how attributes or the form is going to look, and automatically capture information. There's a lot of important things that you should do around feature templates to really streamline what that experience looks like. When it comes to the form, this is a completely new concept that we've introduced into field maps, but really important to the work that we're doing here is that we're actually bringing the smart form capability across the ArcGIS platform, so that the form that you define using the web application and you store inside of your web maps could be used not only in the Field Maps mobile app, but in the new map viewer that, as I've listed here, is in beta, but will be coming out of beta at the end of March with our update on March 30th. So then you can use web applications or the map viewer to edit the forms and have all the intelligence that we're providing in the forms for your web editing workflows as well. And then as we move forward, we'll be bringing that into our desktop software too. And there's some key capabilities there, like being able to take the attributes that are a part of a layer or a separate table and organize them into groups, give them a different name that maybe asks a question, apply conditional visibility or requiredness to those attributes so that based upon conditions that happen, you may need to be required to enter information as you're filling out the inspection form or just capturing the new information on an asset. So it's an exciting new area for data collection with us. It's part of a new ArcGIS specification for working with form information that is separate of what's happening with ArcGIS Survey 123. That uses an open standard called XLS forms, and it will continue to grow and use that specification and stay separate of this initiative as we move forward. Last thing is the offline capabilities. I did talk a lot about this already, so I'll be brief in that we've brought together all of the importance of working with maps in a disconnected state together for you so that you can manage it more effectively. Things like being able to pre-create the offline areas that your mobile workers need to work in, so they don't have to define them on their device itself. They can just simply pick it by name, like Oak Glen here or Forest Falls, and it'll download to their device. But also providing some of the more advanced capabilities like side-loading base maps, either in a TPK format or a VTPK format, or defining this behavior of the download and synchronization process. So a lot of great things there as well. Okay, so that's where we've been. Where are we headed? We have an update on March, it's planned for March 30th. It'll be the ArcGIS Online's next release. That's our upcoming release for field maps. And we have some minor additions that are kind of coming in. We've been doing some work, more work around the smart forms, improving the form entry with additional what are called input types. So if I've got a choice list, being able to represent that as radio buttons, as you see here, rather than just as a drop-down list. Being able to qualify whether or not you want to use a barcode to populate a text field, providing more descriptive text for fields. But then also being able to streamline some of the mobile experience by introducing through the web application a new concept of map settings. Map settings where maybe for a different map, I want to preset things like the location accuracy or the GPS average settings or the GPS streaming settings. And maybe I want to actually remove functionality out of the app, like copying features from the list or the collect here button or the edit multiple button. So we're starting to introduce the concept of map settings that controls the user experience on the device. And then if you've been using the iOS platform, we've had a project underway to do some modernization of controls. And this is kind of a minor thing, but it's really updating to a lot of the tooling that's a part of the latest and greatest versions of the iOS platform. And you can just see a couple of examples there. Where we're headed, oh boy, we've got a broad roadmap, a lot of exciting things that are coming down the pipeline for field maps. There's a lot of work around smart forms that we're engaged in as a part of this initiative. Things like being able to auto-calculate attribute values based upon those arcade expressions, introducing this concept of an attribute rule, which enriches content, providing what we call contingent values that are part of the geodatabase, so you can have cascading choice lists, bringing work management capabilities in that were previously a part of the ArcGIS workforce capability, introducing utility networks for tracing and advanced editing workflows against data that's stored in one. We've introduced indoor mapping support into field maps as well, and we'll be expanding upon that. We didn't really talk about indoors because we're more focused on outdoor stuff here. But you can see there's a broad range of functionality that we've got in the hopper to add into field maps moving forward. The last thing I'll mention, and then I'll give it back to Jay, is that there's a bunch of great content out there to get started. We've got a YouTube channel, or playlist, I should say, that has a bunch of introductory videos that'll help you visualize what field maps can do from different capabilities perspectives. If you have been using Collector or Explorer, there's a really good migration guide that'll help you understand how to move forward into field maps and what's a part of doing that. A lot of great blog content out there too, which we're pumping out blog articles about once a week. And then obviously our product pages where you can find more resources. That's pretty much it. Jay, I'll pass it back to you.
And customer stories, R1s, R2s. But what I'd really like to do is, within the next couple of minutes and not take too much more of Jeff's time, is go through some of these questions. And we do have a lot of questions that are out there.
I'm looking at them now. There's quite a few. That's awesome. I think, we definitely want to make sure we answer all of them. So we might not get them to them all in the webinar, but we should,
Jeff, if there's some
make sure we follow up.
if there's some specific ones that are Esri related that you might know, go right ahead and jump on them.
Do you want me to? I can just start.
Go
going
right
in on
ahead.
them.
If there's something specific that is not
Okay.
related to high accuracy or R2s or R1s or whatever, if there's something Esri related, go ahead.
Okay, I'll just jump and then stop me when we're getting too close because I won't much time. I'm just going to go from near the top. So there's one from Kenneth at the very top. Kenneth, you're kind of asking from a graduate student perspective on access to software and stuff. I think we'll provide contact information after. I'd like to follow up in person on that. It's unique by each of the different parts of our organization as far as how we provide out software like that. So I want to bring that to our education team. William asked us, do we support capture of GPS metadata in both feet and meters? And unfortunately, the answer to that is not both. No, we support it in meters only. We store everything in meters. Could you address from Jared, how to handle Trimble R2 vertical elevations better as it's collecting the HAE? So we do support both capturing the HAE and the MSL, and that's something that's pretty new. It's new for field maps on iOS. It was there for collector on Android, but that involves working integrated with Trimble Mobile Manager. And Jay, you may be going to cover that further. So I'm just going to punt on the rest of that question about how it's done. But just know that you can capture both. So it's totally doable. Do you need to turn Z values on? This is someone with the name anonymous. I don't know how you do that, but someone with the name anonymous. Do you need to turn Z values on to capture the metadata? No, you don't. There's a lot of different ways you can. There's a GP tool. There's a way to add to an existing feature service through a Python script. If you're creating a new layer, you can, in ArcGIS Online, you can add GPS metadata fields to it. You don't need to turn on Z values to do that. Can a user, another anonymous one, can a user load target points for navigation? The way to use the compass tool inside of field maps is that you can either long press and drop a pin, you could search for something, and from a feature be able to navigate to it as well. And so really what you'd want to do if it's a bunch of stakeout targets, for example, is load those in as a layer and make sure that layer's in the map, and then you could search against them and navigate using the compass with it. And Field Maps provides you a bearing and not just a quadrant bearing, but actual degrees as well as the distance. And that's an area we'd like to do more on. So we'd love to get feedback from you. I'd like to do some Apple Watch integration, for example, on that one. I'm going to pass on the question from Roger. Sorry, Roger, but that's about error budget for collected points and load distortion projection. I think that could be a bit of a rabbit hole conversation, so don't really have time. Jeffrey, nothing on major versions or maximum requirements. I mean, we're always building against the latest version. Android 11 is going to introduce a couple of interesting things that we've been tracking, especially when it comes to photo metadata. So watch out for some of the stuff that's coming in Android 11. We'll always be supporting the latest. Where are we at? Oh, we're at 1 minute. I should probably stop there. There's a lot more questions. Hard to get through these, but I don't want to go beyond the time. I want to be conscious of everyone's time.
Right, for sure, Jeff. There's one that I want to put out there, and maybe you can answer this question. And we run into this being on the GIS side of things, and we have surveyors that are wanting to use TSC 7s. We're always under the bias of saying no of using Windows devices with utilizing it, because I know that there's some Windows intricacies in there that don't like to pass the high accuracy over on a Windows device. Is there any? Are we ever going to potentially see field maps on Windows 10?
You know, that's a great question. We're not actively building it with our .NET SDK. The build conference from Microsoft is coming up in May. And if you were to Google this, there is something called Project Latte, like the lattes that you drink. And Microsoft kind of leaked this out through their community that they're going to support Android apps on the Windows 10 platform. So we don't really want to engage in building field maps on Windows if our Android solution is just going to work. And we're trying to reach into Microsoft to find out more about that. We don't have feedback from them yet. But if you think that's a crazy idea, consider that Field Maps today runs on a Mac because Apple supports with their new silicone chipset Macs the ability to run iPad apps. So it actually works. There's some limitations on location, which are, we'll see how it goes direction-wise. But given that, I don't think it's much of a stretch for Microsoft to support Android apps. So we're kind of in this, flux point, or whatever way to say that, where we don't want to kind of dig deep and start building field maps on Windows, knowing that that's potentially around the corner. So
Jeff,
just FYI on that.
That is a good topic, though, because people have asked us about Windows 10. Here's one before we go that you probably could answer better than us. Patrick, with the advent of field maps, will Collector eventually be phased out? If so, what's the timeline for that?
Oh, yeah. I saw that come in. Yeah, so we announced retirement to be the end of December of this year for Collector. And that's for the iOS and Android platforms. We're going to continue to support it on Windows until there's a solution on Windows. So look for it to retire at the end of this year and start to consider the migration before then. Retirement means that the app's still in the store, you can download it and use it. But if it means that we're not going to do any updates to it after the end of March or end of December of this year, it also means that you wouldn't get support from Esri if you were to call into the Esri support line. That's what retirement means for us. Now we might be extending that timeline. We're not sure yet, but that's kind of where we are. All new development from us is going right into field maps. So look, anything new that you're wanting to see from our team is going to go right into field maps. So consider that as well.
All right. Well, I think we got enough. Well, there's a lot of answered questions that are out there, so we will try to reach to you guys afterwards. There is a survey, so please fill out that survey if you'd like. If you want Seiler or Esri to contact you, we can reach out to you. If not, we have map support email address. Shoot us an email. And if we need to, we can get Jeff involved. You can call us toll free. Visit our website. We're on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. So we have all those socials as well. But thank you so much, everybody, for joining this webinar. You don't know how much it means to all of us to be here to learn about this new product. And Jeff, thank you for taking time out of your day and joining with us and having this webinar. Once again, it means so much to us.
Thank you, Joe and Jay, for the opportunity. It's great to do it. Hopefully we can do more.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thanks everybody. We'll see you soon, and we will reach out with other questions that are out there, some parsing of information, and we will then send out that YouTube video and an email with the PowerPoint. So we'll see you soon, and thanks everybody for attending.
Yes, thank you.